its red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Mr. Joe Dewar with the national anthem. The officials, the referee, Brian Lewis, a 15-year veteran, the two linesmen, Ron Finn and Leon Stickle. And the starting goaltenders, Grant Fuhr, the hero of Game 1, a shutout. 10 wins, 3 losses in the playoffs, his average down at 2.80. And at the other end, the veteran, Billy Smith. 17 games this year, 11 wins, 6 losses. His average, 2.27. I'm Dan Kelly, Gary Green alongside Al Trutwig, your host. Gary Green, if we see the kind of hockey we saw in Game 1, we'll have some fun this evening again.
It's going to be interesting to see, Dan, as to how both teams get started here tonight. Remember, in that first game, Edmonton really came out strong. The first couple of shifts had the puck into the Islanders' end zone quickly.
We're underway, and Tonelli tried to drop it back into his own zone and did. This was number 3, Thomas Janssen. Meanwhile, back of the play, a little altercation, and immediately Brian Lewis, the referee, steps in, and we'll have some penalties here. John Tonelli of the Islanders heads towards the penalty box, and also Glenn Anderson of the Oilers. So after just 9 seconds, penalties against each team. Al Arbor, the Islander coach, wanted his team to be a little more physical in this game tonight. Not necessarily rough, but playing the man more, the Islander type of game.
I think Edmonton really played an aggressive game the other night, and they went after guys like Potvin, as Al Trutwig had mentioned, and specifically John Tonelli. And John Tonelli's a good one to go after because he, I think, is their aggressive leader up front.
Slashing penalties against Tonelli and Anderson after just 9 seconds of play. And so each team a man short. Face-off won by Brent Sutter for the Islanders, now to Dennis Potvin. The Islanders in their home white uniforms. Here's a steal for the Oilers. Big save by Smith on Willie Lindstrom. As the puck was stolen in the corner by Messier, and Smith comes up and makes a big save on Lindstrom.
Now the question is, where did the puck go? Billy Smith didn't know. He made the save. Watch right here. Good, quick shot by Lindstrom, but you can see Smith making the turning save. I still haven't come up with the answer to that question. Billy Smith was looking for that puck. Mark Messier, a speedy center iceman that was a left winger, really utilized the outside lanes very well in Game 1.
Here's Dennis Potvin, the Islander team captain, to Brent Sutter, stolen by Coffey for Edmonton. All Coffey back to Fogelin. His shot right on target, and Billy Smith took this against his chest. The Islanders trail in the series 1-0. Meanwhile, if the Oilers were to win this game and take a 2-0 lead in the series, the Islanders really would be in trouble because the next 3 games will be in Edmonton.
Serious trouble, even though they may well state that they were down 2-0 in the Montreal series and came back and won. You can't count on being able to do that all the time.
Minute 34 left in the penalties to Glenn Anderson of Edmonton, John Tonelli of the Oilers. Edmonton with early pressure on. Here is Coffey back to the point. Shot right on by Curry at a save by Smith. This is Ken Morrow to Trottier, number 19. Trottier to Paul Baudelaire, shooting. Save, rebound. They score! Trottier!
Then that puck finally goes in. Grant Fuhr down, but it's Trottier. After Baudelaire got off that hard drive that puts that puck finally behind Grant Fuhr, the first goal that the Islanders have been able to put by him in this series.
And the Islanders take the lead on a goal by one of their inspirational leaders, Brian Trottier. Here's Trottier again, but beaten to the puck by Coffey. Copy number 7 back to get it over to Yeri Curry. And Curry drops it over to Charlie Huddy, number 22. Huddy leaving it there for Coffey, the great young rushing defenseman of this Edmonton club. He flips it in. Going back to get it is Bossy. Chips it into the corner. Trottier dropping it back of the net now to Ken Morrow, number 6. Around on the boards to Paul Baudelaire. Baudelaire drops it to Morrow, now to Baudelaire again. And the young Islander defenseman Paul Baudelaire couldn't get away from Kenny Linsman. He centered. Gary Curry's shot went wide. And now it is Trottier out of his own zone to number 9, Clark Gillies. Return to Trottier. His shot wide by about a foot. Here's Stefan Pearson. His shot blocked. And Coffey comes back. He centered, and Tonelli intercepts. John Tonelli into LaFontaine, back to Anders Keller. Shoots Fuhr the save on a rising wrist shot. And Pat Hughes has it for Edmonton. Over to Randy Gregg. Now at center, LaFontaine intercepting, but already in the zone with Tonelli, and it's offside at the Edmonton blue line. For our local systems, we'll pause here. You're watching Stanley Cup Hockey on USA. Brent Sutter of the Islanders scoring play, by the way. Trottier is 7th of the playoffs. Bossy and Baudelaire assisting. 53 seconds, the time of the goal. It came with each team a man short. Now Edmonton. Kevin Lowe passing it to Dave Semenko, number 27. Semenko to Lee Fogel, who dumps a long one in. Billy Smith handles that, and here is Ken Morrow, number 6. He cleared it on the boards. Now Brent Sutter over to get it to John Tonelli. Now feeding it into the center ice area to Pat Flatley. Flatley knocked down, but got it to Tonelli. A shot and a save by Fuhr. Here's Tonelli again. Tonelli, a great man in the corners and on the boards. Knocked down this time, though. And the Oilers come back. Here is Semenko, number 27. Coming into the Islander zone, a weak shot. Smith sets it up for Baudelaire. Baudelaire to Brent Sutter. Now to Pat Flatley, number 8. Flatley back to Brent Sutter. Sutter into the corner, tied up by Huddy. And the Oilers clear it, and here's Glenn Anderson to Mark Messier. Messier, number 11. Moving in with Lindstrom, but Kenny Morrow breaks it up. Baudelaire now tries to clear it. Huddy held it in. His shot blocked by Greg Gilbert. Here's Trottier. Penalty coming up to Edmonton. Trottier on the delayed penalty. Shoots! Glove save by Fuhr on Trottier. And a penalty now to Edmonton. The score favors the Islanders here, 1-0. Here's Charlie Huddy of Edmonton. A hooking call against him. 4:14 the time. By the way, the Islanders have one of their injured players back in the lineup tonight, Stefan Pearson, but 3 other regulars, Bob Bourne, Dave Langevin, and Bob Nystrom, are all still out of action. Pearson is number 7 for New York. Here is Dennis Potvin. Passing it to Thomas Janssen. Now to Potvin. The Islanders on a power play. Shoot it in. It hit Messier. Going back is number 29, Don Jackson for the Oilers. Cleared it on the boards to Hunter. He couldn't get it out. Here's a chance for Bossy. His shot wide of the net. Now Gillies centers one. But Messier was there to intercept. And he clears at the center ice. Back comes Dennis Potvin. Potvin over to Bossy. His shot blocked. Now Mike Bossy again. Centers to Gillies. Gillies a backhander. Fuhr a sprawling save. And Randy Gregg cleared it to Hunter, who pokes it into the Islanders' zone.
I thought Grant Fuhr was almost going to throw that puck right in his own net, but he was able to just send it a little wide. Mark Gillies, good opportunity.
The Islanders on the power play, 9 goals in the playoffs, only a 14.1 percentage. Here's Anders Keller, clearing it in behind the net. LaFontaine into the corner to Keller, back to LaFontaine to Keller. On the point to Janssen, return to Anders Keller. Shoots one. That was blocked by Lowe in front of the net. Here's Janssen. A drive. Blocked by Fuhr. A big pile up, and Fuhr able to cover up on it. And the Islanders have fire in their eyes here in the early going in this one.
They really have. 32 seconds remaining in Charlie Huddy's penalty right now. That is the best puck possession that I have seen the New York Islanders have on a power play in quite a while. Grant Fuhr was able to keep them out. But Taller, LaFontaine, and Greg Gilbert working that puck around nicely. Now take a look right from that slot area. There's that opportunity by Clark Gillies. You'll see what I mean by the fact that Grant Fuhr came close to throwing it right in his own net. There you can see 3 Islander players surrounding Grant Fuhr, all trying to dig that puck out. The Islanders are intense.
21-year-old Grant Fuhr, former first-round draft choice of the Oilers, and he sure looked like a first-round draft choice in Game 1.
Watch him tonight. He is so quick. Once he's down, he gets up on his feet again as fast as any goalie in this league.
You see Glenn Sather on the right of your screen, his assistant, John Muckler to his right. Linesman Leon Stickle ready to drop the puck. Pearson, by the way, now has the puck. Shoots one. Saved by Fuhr. The rebound. Loose in front. They score! Greg Gilbert, number 17, I believe, pushed it in. And there you see Gilbert. He also lost his helmet.
Well, watch very closely, but that intensity shows up. There you see the first save made by Fuhr, but the loose puck laying there. Indeed, I believe it was Greg Gilbert. He ended up on top of Randy Gregg. There's Gilbert. Now he and Gregg are struggling.
He scored that goal while being tackled by Randy Gregg. There he is, the goal scorer, Greg Gilbert. Quite a goal.
Well, it just shows you the strength of Gilbert. Take a look at it one more time. You can see number 21, Randy Gregg, and 17, Greg Gilbert, struggling for that puck. Gilbert wins the battle, puts the puck in behind Fuhr.
For Greg Gilbert, his 5th playoff goal, a power play goal for the Islanders, and the Islanders lead 2-0. LaFontaine and Pearson got assists. 5:48 the time. Here are the Oilers. Behind now 2-0. Hunter moving in with a shot that's high. Now Smith out of the net, cleared it. Oilers got it. It's centered out in front. Jackson shot deflects wide. Here's Matt Saline trying to clear it. Held in by Randy Gregg. Now Kevin McClellan, another of the heroes in Game 1, held it in. Here's Randy Gregg. His shot wide of the net. And Dwayne Sutter for New York. Couldn't get it by Jackson at the point. McClellan held it in, and now Jackson and Dwayne Sutter spar on the far boards.
Very dangerous place as well, right in front of the Islander bench, and it's not going to end there. The more players are getting involved in it. The linesman there to break it up.
For our local systems, we'll pause here. You're watching USA Sports. Box, but also getting a penalty for Edmonton. Pat Hughes, Dwayne Sutter right now is the only Islander in the penalty box, and we'll await the...
Right in front of the Islander bench, Jackson, number 29, and Dwayne Sutter, number 12, for the Islanders going at it. Here you see Sutter in the penalty box, but 2 Oilers.
Jackson gets a roughing penalty. Hughes gets a slashing penalty. And Dwayne Sutter gets a roughing penalty. That means the Oilers will be 2 men short. The Islanders only 1. Glenn Sather with a rather worried look on his brow. His team is behind 2-0, and now they're going to face a 4-against-3 Islander power play.
I am sure that Sather is a little surprised at the intensity that the Islanders have come out with tonight.
Here from the face-off, Mike Fossey dropping it to number 3, Thomas Janssen. Now to Dennis Potvin. A 4-against-3 power play here for New York. Here's Janssen jumping it in. Grant Fuhr out of the net to clear it. Got it on the boards. Potvin knocking it down now to Trottier. He centered one, but Lee Fogelin is there to intercept and clear it away. Number 3, Janssen, going back to get it. The Islanders have dominated. They have outshot Edmonton 10-2, and right now on a power play. Here's Dennis Potvin. Leaves it for Janssen. Into the corner to Trottier. He's taken out of the play, and Messier for Edmonton able to clear the zone. and get it to center ice. Johnson giving it to Dennis Potvin. Now to Bossy. Over to Trottier, and that play goes offside at the Edmonton Oilers blue line. You look at Brian Trottier. He scored the game's first goal.
This game is authorized under television rights granted by the National Hockey League, intended solely for the private non-commercial use of our audience. Any publication, reproduction, retransmission, or other use of the pictures, descriptions, and accounts of this game without the express written consent of the National Hockey League is strictly prohibited.
Trottier and Bossy up front with Janssen and Potvin the point men. Edmonton 2 men short. The Islanders just won. The Oilers clear at the length of the ice, and here is Potvin, number 5. Dennis Potvin dropping it to Mike Bossy. Bossy to Janssen, over to Potvin. Potvin shoots one. That's just wide. Fuhr may have got a piece of it. Here's Janssen to Trottier. Back to Thomas Janssen. Fakes the shot. Now feeding it into Bossy. Back.
And as that rebound came out after bouncing off the backboard, Trottier would have been in a perfect position to get a shot away, but he was not able to do so.
Now Trottier, one of the great center icemen in this game, one of the defensive game. He's a very underrated defenseman in this league.
Very much so. The unsung hero on the Oilers. Great defensively, blocks a lot of shots in his own end.
Now 24 seconds left in the penalties. Here is Persson, number 7, feeding it into Gilbert. Gilbert tried to set LaFontaine up. Back comes Jari Kurri for the Oilers. Kurri trying to move through, couldn't. Now Kurri poking it into the corner, and going back is Gilbert. Around on the boards to Janssen. Just 3 seconds left in this Islander power play. Now the penalized players are back on. Janssen flips it into the Edmonton zone. Persson is there to clear it in behind the net. Now centered out in front by LaFontaine, but right onto Hughes' stick. He took a hit from Flatley, but cleared it to center. Here's Persson passing it to Flatley. Flatley now hit by Hughes. He'll get a penalty. Pat Hughes for Edmonton will go to the penalty box, and the Oilers are running into penalty problems here in the first period. The Stanley Cup playoffs are coming to you coast to coast on 5th penalty of this game to the Oilers. That's Pat Hughes, a high sticking call. 8:51 the time. And the Islanders with a 2-0 lead get another power play chance right here.
Hughes getting his stick too high along Pat Flatley right in front of the Edmonton Oiler bench. This is really going to hurt the Oilers again. They haven't been able to really get on track, and they badly need to, being down 2-0.
7th penalty of the period, and the 5th to Edmonton. The Islanders with a 2-0 lead and operating on the power play again right now. Here's Paul Baudelaire ahead to John Tonelli. He's flattened by Lee Fogelin. Now Brent Sutter in to get it. We'll get another penalty called here. Puck is in the corner. I believe this penalty will be against the Islanders.
I'm sure it will be. To Brent Sutter, most likely. He tackled Kevin Lowe.
There you see Brian Lewis with the penalty call. And for our local systems, we'll pause right here on USA Sports. Number 21, a holding call, 9:12 the time here in the first period, and each team will be a man short.
Well, take a look at it right along those left boards. Brent Sutter trying to get through at that puck. Kevin Lowe taking him out, but Brent Sutter more or less tagging him. Look at that hit there that was handed out by Lee Fogelin to John Tonelli. Flattened Tonelli. Tonelli very rarely gets caught with his head down. He did that time.
Here's Kevin Lowe for Edmonton. Each team a man short. Fogelin now ahead to Kurri. Kurri, number 17, looking for Gretzky. Fires it behind the net. Smith intercepts it. Cut it off and gives it to Brian Trottier. Trottier to Baudelaire. Baudelaire, number 4, being forechecked by Gretzky now to Persson, just back in the lineup after a separated shoulder injury to Baudelaire, now to Trottier, and back to Persson, who feeds it to Bossy, who deflects it into the Edmonton zone. Bossy and Fogelin into the corner. Puck knocked loose, and back comes Kevin Lowe at center to Kurri. Kurri for Edmonton. Feeds Gretzky. Gretzky gets turned around. Back pass to Charlie Huddy. Huddy flipping it in behind the net. No Oiler there. And Persson is able to clear it and get it to center ice. This is Paul Coffey for Edmonton. Lead pass to Gretzky. Popped off his stick. He drops it to Huddy. Shoots one. Smith. Glove save. And with Gretzky standing on the doorstep, Billy Smith held onto it and then glared at number 99, who was off to the edge of the crease.
Well, smart play by Gretzky. Great shot by Charlie Huddy. He was going for that short side, glove side. Smith coming up with a big save. Gretzky, as Dan had mentioned, standing right there looking for a rebound, but he doesn't get any because Billy Smith was able to hang on to it himself.
There you see that isolated camera on Wayne Gretzky, and you saw a fine drop pass. Most times you see Gretzky on the ice, you'll see the Editors throw Trottier head on against him. Here's Potvin. Each team still a man short. And the Editors lead this game 2-0. This is Ken Morrow. Feeding it out. Intercepting it. Charlie Huddy, a drive. Blocked at the defense. Now Messier for Edmonton. Mark Messier. Lost it to Butch Goring, and Messier has to circle back. And he gives it to Huddy. Huddy flips it in. Kenny Morrow, number 6 for New York, back to get it. Cleared it. Huddy pinching in, held it in for Edmonton. Now Smith leaves it for Morrow. Smith was upended in the play. Morrow cleared it to center. And number 28, Anders Kaller, into the Edmonton zone. Kaller into the corner. Centers one. Coffey intercepts. Now Edmonton on a brief power play. Their penalized player back on. Now everybody is back on the ice. Brent Sutter is back on as well. Here's Kaller for New York breaking up. Number 28, Anders Kaller to Ken Morrow, knocked away from him. Kaller into the corner. Centers one, and Gretzky intercepts. Number 99, Wayne Gretzky. Moving in, Gretzky centers one. To Coffey, he couldn't control it. And the Editors come back. Tonelli to Brent Sutter. Drop pass to Flatley. Flatley shoots. Muir the save. And Stanenko cleared the rebound. Tonelli held it in. Here's Tonelli. Centers one. Muir cleared it away. And then a big pile up with the puck underneath the Editor player, Brent Sutter. And now Tonelli doing some pushing and shoving with Yari Curry of the Oilers.
Well, John Tonelli had made an excellent play by stealing the puck off of Dave Semenko just earlier. Took Semenko's glove as well.
You're watching the Stanley Cup Finals on USA Sports. There you see John Tonelli. Boy, does he come to play with intensity every night.
Pegged in the raging bull, Dan. I think that pretty much describes John Tonelli.
Here's Baudelaire for the Editors, in behind the net to the rookie LaFontaine, who was unable to center it. And the Oilers come back. It's Lumley to Yaroslav Pozar, number 10, broken up by Persson. Now carrying in was Jackson, and that play offside. And now Gilbert and Jackson almost get into it. Over comes Dwayne Sutter. I think they bumped actually accidentally, and then almost got into a scrap.
Brian Lewis was signaling that both of them can go to the penalty box and cool off, and that's exactly what's happening right now. Don Jackson, number 29, was headed for the box, but has decided to turn around to see whether anything else is happening. And he's turning around again. Brian Lewis heading over to the penalty box, but Jackson and
power play.
Well, those penalties for high sticking, not roughing, but nevertheless, both serving 2 minutes right now, cooling things off.
Don Jackson and Greg Gilbert of Edmonton and New York, respectively. And so each team will be a man short. There's Don Jackson, formerly with the Minnesota North Star organization, played college hockey at Notre Dame.
I'll take a look at how it happened. As Dan had indicated, they just more or less collided. Jackson came back, took a little swing at Gilbert, and then Gilbert returned the favor, and Brian Lewis has sent them both off.
Here's the loose puck inside the Editor blue line, and number 9, Gillies, drops it around on the boards to Thomas Janssen. Now to Dennis Potvin. Potvin moving it into LaFontaine. The play goes offside. at the Edmonton blue line. One of the changes the Islanders have made tonight, we mentioned Stefan Pearson. As you look at Pat LaFontaine, the rookie, Pearson is in the lineup tonight and has played. The rookie Gord Janine has not seen action.
Well, Al Arbour doing a little bit of juggling. Obviously, when you lose that first game, you've got to make some changes. Stefan Pearson, a very valuable defenseman to them. He has not had a great playoffs. He's missed the last 5 games in playoffs because of that shoulder injury, and he's back tonight, and maybe that little bit of a layoff will have done him good because he's a very valuable, experienced defenseman, and the Islanders need that.
Meanwhile, 3 other key veterans, Bourne, Langevin, and Nystrom, are still out of action for New York. Here's Messier for Edmonton into Fogelin. Stanley knocked it away from him. The Oilers center it. Messier moves in, shoots one. Big save by Smith. And then Janssen upends Anderson at the side of the net, and he'll get a penalty. And this will give Edmonton a 4-against-3 power play. USA Sports is bringing you the Stanley Cup Finals. 11th penalty of the first period called. Janssen of the Islanders a hooking call. And it will give Edmonton a 4-against-3 power play right here. This is Coffey for Edmonton. Over to Mark Messier. Messier trying to center, but intercepting it was Ken Morrow, and he cleared it away.
Morrow, a very experienced defenseman. As far as being able to sit back, be patient, and he watches. He was able to cut that pass off, taking away a scoring opportunity by Gretzky.
Now here's Gretzky at the left point moving in. Gretzky shoots one. Smith the save. Big rebound taken by the Islanders and knocked from one New York player to another with a hand pass, and that stops play. And we'll get a face-off in the Islander zone.
Well, Brian Lewis obviously wanted to make sure tonight's game that nothing got out of hand with all the minors that have been assessed. It kind of makes a difficult job for both coaches who have to juggle their line combinations. But it has also given both teams a good opportunity on the power play. The Oilers right now, very important if they could score on this power play.
Here's Coffey getting it into the corner, and Morrow for New York gets an opening and clears it out of there. Grant Fuhr feeding Wayne Gretzky. Gretzky gives it to Messier. Messier, number 11, centers to Coffey. Shoots. Smith. Chest save as he took that rising shot against his chest and held onto it. 33-year-old Billy Smith. He's played in more playoff games and won more than any other goalie in the history of this league.
Well, notice Coffey gets a shot away right from that face-off dot area, but the Islanders are not giving the Oilers anything in that slot area. They're not allowing them to be able to get the puck and get good shots away from the best scoring positions. Instead, they're trying to keep them to the outside. Let them skate around the perimeters all they want. The Islanders just feel that Billy Smith can stop all the pucks from those areas.
Here's Gretzky. Shoots one. Blocked by Morrow. And then the lanky Islander defenseman Morrow cleared it away. This is Paul Coffey. Still a 4-against-3 power play for the Oilers. Gilbert and Jackson back on. Here's Linsman in front of the net, and Smith to his knees to stop him. Now Gretzky to Yari Curry. Centered back. Gretzky couldn't get a stick on it. Gretzky back to Coffey. Over to Curry, into Gretzky. Shoots! Wide of the net. Smith may have got a piece of it. Here's Gretzky again. Broken up by Gilbert, but held in by Coffey to Gretzky. Gretzky fakes the shot. Feeds Linsman. Now to Coffey. Over to Curry. Back to Coffey to Curry again. His shot centered by Gretzky and cleared away by the Islanders. And that ends the penalty to Thomas Janssen. Right back comes Coffey. Paul Coffey flipping it through for McClellan. Kevin McClellan in front. Hughes, a shot. Smith the save. Pat Hughes thought he had scored. And Billy Smith with a key save there.
Well, I thought that he had scored as well. I don't know how Smith was able. Coffey sets that play up. Well, this was the opportunity by Hughes coming up. You can just see one after another. But Billy Smith is at his best tonight. There's Hughes right in front of the net area. Finally, we get a chance to see Pat Hughes in front.
They score right from the faceoff. Edmonton, right from the faceoff, finally do get it behind Billy Smith.
Well, did that one come quick? We no sooner finished telling you about how Billy Smith was making the save one after another than I think Kevin McClellan has scored. There you see him going over to talk to Glenn Sather right now. Whether or not we will get a replay of that, we'll just have to wait and see. There is no replay of it apparently, but Kevin McClellan, being the goal scorer, put the Edmonton Oilers right back into this first period of play.
Randy Gregg, they announce as having scored the goal. Now the Oilers back in their own zone. Clear one to center ice. Boudelier knocking it down and backtracks with Pearson. Gregg got the goal. McClellan the assist. 15:06 the time. As now the Editors attack. Here's Boudelier cutting in behind the net. Gregg took him out of the play. Now Dwayne Sutter centers to brother Brent. Back to Boudelier. That shot off a skate into the corner. Here's Jackson. And now off to the side of the net. There you see McClellan and Dwayne Sutter getting into it.
Well, both linesmen trying to separate these two. I don't know how that started, but it was outside of the play. Sutter and McClellan. McClellan ending up on top of Dwayne Sutter. And still is very upset with Sutter. Well, we're going to get an opportunity to see what happened right off that faceoff. Now watch closely. Gregg shoots the puck, number 21. There you see McClellan, I think, definitely touched that puck as it was directed in behind Billy Smith. Now, they have credited it to Randy Gregg, but as you could see, I am sure that Kevin McClellan, who is now leaving the ice, actually deflected that puck.
As is Dwayne Sutter, so they must have been assessed major penalties. I, like you, think McClellan did deflect the shot, but the official announcement gives Gregg. And there's the scrap between Sutter and McClellan.
Give that goal to themselves. Instead, they don't really care, and that shows good team sportsmanship on a guy like McClellan, who scored a very important goal for the Oilers the other night. Just may assume, give it to Gregg. Who cares as long as we scored?
Now here's Glenn Anderson, number 9 for Edmonton. Into the corner with Bossy. Anderson trying to center it to Willie Lindstrom. And now Dennis Potvin intercepts for New York. He feeds Trottier. Ahead to Gilbert. Drop pass back to Bossy. Bossy taken out of the play by Lowe. And then Anderson got it to center ice. The Editors. Greg Gilbert, number 17. Flips a bouncer. Fuhr out of the net to shoot it on the boards. Knocked down by Bossy. Bossy dropped it back, but nobody was there. Coincidental majors in the last penalty assessments to Sutter and McClellan, along with minors, so the team's not short-handed, just without the services of those two players for a 7-minute duration.
This momentum in the game has been shifting hands. Shots on net now 11-10, still in favor of the Islanders, but power plays have been a big cause of that difference.
Here's Gretzky trying to move in. And Ken Morrow knocked it away from Gretzky. Gretzky right back to get it. Had it roll off his stick, gets it back again. Now to Semenko, and Morrow clears it away. Every time the Oilers cross that blue line, Morrow seems to be there to break it up.
Steady Eddie back in the blue line. Al Arbor thinks the world of him.
Here's a lead pass now, and it's called back on a 2-line offside as Gretzky was trying to break away. A rule, however, the pass came from inside the Edmonton blue line to the Islanders side of center. That constitutes a 2-line offside.
Wayne Gretzky is doing everything in his power to try and break away from the tight coverage that's been given to him, if not by Trottier, then by Brent Sutter. Right now, Brent Sutter out on the ice. Meanwhile, back of the play, Pinelli and Curry were exchanging some words.
Gretzky skates over, says something to Curry. By the way, when the Editors score first in the playoffs, they're 6-1. Edmonton, when they score first, 9-0. Well, the Auditors have scored first tonight. They scored the first two, but Edmonton's come back to cut it to 2-1. Now Huddy, number 22. Moving in to Semenko, shoots one. Smith took that against his chest and held on to it.
Charlie Huddy making a nice rush, beating it to Semenko. Semenko has been put on that line with Gretzky and Curry. He obviously has been given the policeman role, but has been very effective during playoffs.
He's had 4 goals. Not only is he the policeman on the Edmonton club, or Gretzky's bodyguard, he also has had great success in the playoffs of distracting the other goaltender or screening the other goaltender. He's a big, tough guy to move in front of that net.
He really is, and try to see in front of him if you're a goalie.
Now they rule the puck had come outside the blue line, and as Huddy shot it back in, it's called on an offside.
15 penalties in his first period of play so far. That has caused a lot of up and down reaction by the crowd here tonight. Not quite the first period of play that we had in game number 1.
Well, we went over 40 minutes without a goal in game 1. We've had 3 here in the first period. Trottier and Gilbert for the Auditors. Gregg, or we believe McClellan, for Edmonton. Here the Auditors trying to hold it in. Potvin centered to Pat Flatley, knocked away from him, and Paul Coffey comes to center. Coffey poke checked by Janssen. Now a puck picked up by Gretzky, but again, the play whistled on an offside at the Auditor blue line. We're down to 2:09 left here in period 1. There's Dave Semenko, number 27. Trottier scored from Bossy and Baudelaire at the 53-second mark. Then Gilbert made it 2-0 from LaFontaine and Pearson at 5:48 on a power play. But then Edmonton came back, Gregg scoring from McClellan at 15:06. We feel, however, the goal could be changed. We thought McClellan deflected it. Here's Linsman for the Oilers. Shoots one. Smith a save. Cleared it to Kenny Morrow. Now Hunter, number 12 for Edmonton. Kicks it back of the net. Puck is centered, and Morrow there again for New York. And now Clark Gillies clears to center to Anders Kaller. Kaller able to shoot it in. Number 21, Randy Gregg, back to get it. Now Gillies bumping into Pat Hughes to knock him off the puck. There's Kaller for New York to Gillies. Clark Gillies able to maneuver in front, shoots. He scores! Gillies! Watch Clark Gillies pick the puck up. Now to the side of the net, move out in front, and on his backhander, put it right through Fuhr's pass. Another look at the goal by Clark Gillies to make it 3-1. See him take a look and then slide it right through the legs of Grant Fuhr, the Oiler goaltender. Another look at the fine play by number 9, the guy they call Jethro, the big strong winger of the Auditors, Clark Gillies. Gillies' 8th of the year. Kaller gets the assist. 18:31 the time. And Clark Gillies, who had a very disappointing regular season, having a great playoff for New York. And the Auditors have a 3-1 lead. Now Dennis Potvin for New York. Over to Gilbert. Gilbert dropping it to Thomas Janssen. Janssen clearing it to Bossy. He flips it into the Edmonton zone. Gilbert going in for New York. Shoots one. That's grabbed by Fuhr and Kevin Lowe. Behind the net, cleared it. Bossy knocked it down. Shoots. He shot it wide, but the play had been whistled down. They rolled it. Bossy had knocked it down with a high stick. And there you see the referee, Brian Lewis. He has had a very difficult first period to call. It's been a very physical, hard-hitting opening 20 minutes. And he has stepped in and called 15 penalties. 1:07 now left in the period. Here's Trottier feeding it to Gilbert. The Auditors lead 3-1. Gilbert shot. Big save by Fuhr. Trottier again. The Janssen were in the final minute of the period. And now the Oilers break it up, and Messier shoots it into the New York zone. This is Dennis Potvin to Trottier. Long right wing pass to Bossy. Bossy trying to maneuver around. Couldn't get around Fogelin and Willie Lindstrom. Beats Mark Messier. Messier for Edmonton. Sacked by Potvin on the play. Now Messier centered, and Trottier broke that up and gives it to Bossy. Mike Bossy to Gilbert. Greg Gilbert trying to move in. Backhander wide by a couple of feet. Again to Gretzky. Gretzky trying to center. Morrow knocked it down. And now Flatley ties Gretzky up, and the buzzer goes to end the first period here at the Nassau Coliseum. A good one for the New York Islanders. Shots on goal in the opening period. Each team had an even dozen. 12 for the Oilers, 12 for the Islanders. And coming up in our intermission, you'll meet one of the New York Islander rookie defenseman, Gord Dineen. He'll be Al Trotwig's guest in our USA studio. The score after one period of play, the Islanders 3, Edmonton 1. Our intermission coming right up. Period. The score: the New York Islanders 3, the Edmonton Oilers 1. The scoring summary of the first period: Trottier at the 5th teams in the first period. I agree with Gary Green. Penalties, the story of that first period. In the early part of the game, when Edmonton drew penalties, the Islanders dominated play, and at one time I think it outshot the Oilers, something like 11-2. Then as the period went on, the Islanders started to draw penalties, and you saw the Oilers come on, get a goal, and they had the same number of shots in the period. So penalties, a factor, something to be careful of in the rest of this game. Here we go to the second period. McClelland and Dwayne Sutter are in the penalty box, but the team's not shorthanded. They're serving coincidental majors, and now right from the start, Hunter and Flatley almost get into it before we even drop the puck. Of the 15 penalties in that first period, 13 were minors, 2 were majors. Edmonton assessed 8 penalties, the Islanders 7. There you see number 99, Wayne Gretzky. Only 87 goals this year for the Oilers. Last year in the finals, he was held without a goal by this Islander team, and he has been held without a goal in the series this year, although this is only game 2. This is Dennis Potvin for New York. Long pass to Gillies, Coffey intercepting at center ice. Now Gillies flipping it in. Out of the goal to clear it away was Pure. Now the Islanders drop it back. Gretzky intercepts with Hunter to center ice. Back to Gretzky. In on right wing to Huddy. Drop pass, but Matt Saline, number 20, back checking, intercepted for New York. Saline back in the Islander lineup tonight and seeing, I believe, his first action of this game. Now Potvin tried to clear it. Coffey held it in. Here's Hunter, number 12. Trying to center. Knocked away. Here's Hunter again. Dead center. Gretzky. Poke at it. Potvin stopped that. Here's Huddy. Shoots one. That's blocked by Potvin again. Where did Coffey held it in? But this time LaFontaine tried to get right in and go. Never got the shot off as he went to his backhand. And now play is called anyway, as I believe they thought Pure, the goaltender, was injured.
Well, Pure is still down. Brian Lewis looking over him, but Bossy, very surprising that he didn't even attempt to shoot that puck after having worked himself right in front of Pure. Watch Bossy cutting in from that right side. Well, it looked as though he did shoot it, in fact, and that he got his own rebound back. So,
yeah, he did shoot it, and Pure just beat him. Looked like he never got the shot off, though. Thank goodness for the old instant replay.
Oh, what would we do without it, Dan?
Here's Messier clearing it behind the net low. Now to Glenn Anderson, who pokes it into the Islander zone. Baudelaire going back for New York, and as he beat Willie Lindstrom to the puck, it's an icing call against Edmonton.
Well, we take a look at number 4 for the Islanders, Paul Baudelaire. Very strong defenseman. Hasn't got the height necessarily, but he can really wheel with that puck. He can muster up some offense. He needs to work a little bit more on his defensive play, but he has made steady improvements in playoffs.
Face-off coming up in the Edmonton zone. There you see number 19, Brian Trottier. He scored the first goal of this game. He's out centering a line with Mike Bossy and Greg Gilbert. So, for the most part tonight, the Islanders have had Bossy and Trottier back together. Here are the Oilers clearing one to center ice. Anderson, number 9, moving into Messier. Shoots. He hit the side of the net. And Trottier fires it around on the boards, but Vogelin held it in. His shot blocked by Morrow. Now Morrow ahead to Trottier. To number 17, Gilbert. Trottier gets the return pass. Works it to Baudelaire. Paul Baudelaire flipping one in. Grant Pure out of the net to clear it. Now knocked down by Gilbert. Puck is taken by Lowe. Can't clear it. There's a chance for Trottier. Big save there by Pure. Now the puck centered, and Lowe had to clear it away. Vogelin to Lindstrom as Edmonton worked back. Number 9 is Glenn Anderson. Shoots it in, and Potvin goes back for New York. Cleared it. Pat Flatley gets the puck. He's checked, and here's Pozar, number 10 for Edmonton. Morrow breaks it up, couldn't clear it. Now they do clear it. And hustling back is Randy Gregg. Over to number 29, Don Jackson for Edmonton. Here's the big defenseman, Jackson, checked by Sutter. Quick pass to Tonelli, but intercepted by Gregg. Now Brent Sutter held it in. Here's Flatley, number 8. Pat Flatley shoots. Muir took that against his chest. And then Tonelli, as he usually is, in the middle of all the action. From Maine to Hawaii, you're watching the Stanley Cup Finals on USA. Troutwig and Gary Green. This is Dan Kelly. Face off in the Edmonton zone. Pat LaFontaine against Linsman. The Islanders get it, and Gillies works it into Anders Kaller. Kaller to Gillies. He dropped it back. The puck came outside the zone, and the Islanders have to drop back to Neen. Now giving it to Anders Kaller. They head to Gillies. Gillies racing in with Gregg behind the net. Now LaFontaine dropped it to Potvin. He missed it, and Dineen has to hustle all the way back into the Islanders zone. Gord Dineen clearing one. Lumley knocks it down. Now Dineen knocks Lumley into the boards in the corner. Potvin gets it to LaFontaine. Islanders can't clear it. Here's Pozar centering one over to Lumley. Lumley drops it back to Pozar. Yaroslav Pozar gets it in front. Pozar trying to center. Does. It comes to Jackson at the point. In front to Lumley. Backhander. Potvin. Stop that. And then Potvin cleared it away again. And Clark Gillies is able to flip it out of there to relieve the pressure. Randy Gregg back to touch it. It's icing against the Islanders.
Dr. Randy Gregg and the Edmonton Oilers, good opportunity there to try and get another goal. Lumley all alone in front of that net area. Just for a second, though, it took a little bit too long trying to get that shot away, a backhand shot at that. Not much behind it, and Billy Smith able to make the save. Dan, I'm still very difficult to try and sense as to what's going to happen next in this game, because it just keeps bouncing back and forth. Oilers giving up much more in their own end zone tonight, and that could be, though, a result of Al Arbour and his team maybe forechecking a little bit more and playing a little bit smarter in the Oilers' end zone.
Here's Trottier working it to Brent Sutter as the Islanders come back. Gretzky tying up Brent Sutter. Now puck taken by Trottier to Brent Sutter. Shoots one. Saved by Fuhr, and the rebound cleared away behind the net by Huddy. He knocked it with his hand. The fans hollered. There's Trottier, a shot. Fuhr just got a piece of that. Now Brent Sutter into the corner. Centers to Trottier. Backhander. He scores! Brian Trottier.
Trottier's 8th goal of playoffs. Watch as he works his way into the slot area, goes with a backhand, beats Fuhr on that far side. That puck that Trottier ended up getting came off the skate of referee Brian Lewis. It's been one of those nights out there. Take a look at it. That puck bounced right off the skate of Brian Lewis. Trottier ends up with it, works his way into the slot area, and goes with his backhand to put the Islanders ahead 4-1.
Well, the backhand is supposed to be the forgotten art in hockey. That Trottier really whistled that one in.
It's something the goaltenders really don't get enough opportunity practice-wise. It's always hard for them to judge. Trottier just proved that.
Well, the Islanders were shut out by Fuhr in game 1, but they've scored 4 so far in this one. Back comes Mike Bossy into Gilbert. Gilbert back to Bossy. Bossy centers to Potvin. Shoots! Fuhr got a piece of that. Now Trottier in the corner. Kevin Lowe coming up with it. Can't clear it. Loose in front of the net, and Messier comes back for Edmonton. Mark Messier trying to work it through to Anderson. Janssen broke that up. And the Islanders come back. Here's Gilbert. Gilbert trying to center. Back checking was Glenn Anderson, who intercepts. Anderson to Willie Lindstrom for the Oilers. Lindstrom knocked down by Janssen. He'll get a penalty. And the Oilers will have the man advantage here. Explosive national coverage of the Stanley Cup Finals only on USA Sports.
Thomas Johnson in the penalty box for the Islanders. His second hooking minor of the evening. 5:37 the time. There you'll take a look at it as Thomas Johnson, number 3, pulls down Lindstrom, number 19, for the Oilers. The Oilers now in the power play, and once again they'll have an opportunity to try and get back into this hockey game.
They're trailing 4-1. That last Islander goal, Trache, his second of the night, his 8th of the playoffs. Brent Sutter and Flatley assisting. 4:52 of the time. And now Edmonton on a power play. The Oilers in the playoffs, 14 power play goals, a 23.7 percentage. Over the regular season, they were second only to the Minnesota North Stars in power play production. Puck back in the Oilers zone, and Curry gives it to Huddy, now to Gretzky. Gretzky lets the shot go. That went off Morrow. Potvin trying to clear it. Now Messier back to Coffey at the point. His shot blocked. Now Messier shoots one, and Smith sprawled to get a piece of that, and then it deflected up into the crowd.
Wayne Gretzky parked right on Smith's doorstep. I'm not so sure that maybe Wayne Gretzky didn't tip that puck up over the glass. That shot coming from the point area. Al Arbour right now behind the Islander bench giving some instructions to Greg Gilbert, obviously as to trying to take away that shot coming from the point area. Thomas Johnson still in the penalty box, and he'll be there for another minute and 36 seconds unless the Oilers score.
13 minutes, 59 seconds left in the second period. Faceoff is going to be outside the New York blue line. So you could be right that the puck went off Gretzky because they moved the faceoff outside the blue line. There's Butch Goring. Oldest player involved in this series is a player, 34 years of age. 15th season in the National Hockey League. Originally broke in with the Los Angeles Kings.
I think he's got a few years left in him yet, Dan. He can show some tremendous bursts of speed out there. He works so hard.
Edmonton on a power play. This is Paul Coffey. Dumps it. Number 7, Paul Coffey. Ahead to Curry. Now to Glenn Anderson. He dumps it in. Gretzky going in to get it. Gretzky holding on to it. Drops it to Curry. Curry back to Gretzky, but Potvin knocked it away. And Gilbert and Brent Sutter come back for New York. Brent Sutter trying to go around Coffey. Coffey rolled the play into the corner and broke it up. Here's Gary Curry. Over to Coffey. Headmanning it to Anderson. Anderson leaving it for Gretzky. Gretzky shoots one. Morrow blocked that. Puck outside the line, cleared back in by Curry, and it's offside at the Islander blue line. I mentioned in the first period, I don't know how many times I've seen Ken Morrow make big defensive plays. He continues that way here in the second period.
The thing that's surprising about him is that he just more or less stands there and watches the play. There you see him going down, making that big save, but so often he just reads the play so well. You can see that upstairs camera angle that gives you a good idea as to the plays being set up and what Billy Smith is confronted with.
Still 27 seconds left in the Islander penalty. This is Kevin Lowe shooting it in on left wing for Hunter. Hunter into a bad angle. There's Morrow knocking it away. Now Lindsman gets it. And intercepting it was Brent Sutter, who shoots it down the ice. Grant Fuhr out of the net to clear it to Lowe, number 4. Lowe over to Randy Gregg, headmanning it to Lindsman. Kenny Lindsman drops it to Lowe. Penalized player Janssen is back on, but Lowe has it for Edmonton, centered. Nobody could get a stick on it. Gregg at the point into Lindsman. Morrow takes Lindsman out of the play. Brent Sutter tried to clear it. Oh, Brent Sutter battling with Hughes. Got it to Keller. Keller on the boards. Pinned there, and we'll get a stoppage in play. And a face-off in the Islander zone. For our local systems, we'll pause here. You're watching the Stanley Cup Finals on USA Sports. Oilers doing differently tonight, if anything, than they did in Game 1.
Well, Dan, what they're doing a little bit differently is they're giving up that puck in their own end zone more. I think that they were much more cautious. They were moving it out of their end zone quicker. Tonight, the Islanders, I'll give them credit for causing the Oilers to make some mistakes, but they're taking...
Over to Pearson, number 7. Into Clark Gillies. Gillies leaves it for Trottier. Trottier trying to center one. Knocked away, and here comes Anderson. Flipping it into the Islanders zone with Potvin back to gut it. The Islanders lead 4-1. Potvin to Bossy. Now a pass to LaFontaine was behind him. And as Fogelin goes back to play the puck, it's icing because the Islanders were on their own side of center when they dumped it in.
And you take a look at Lee Fogelin. A year ago, Lee Fogelin was the captain of the Edmonton Oilers, and before the start of this season, he decided to give up that captainship to none other than the Wayne Gretzky. I think that showed a tremendous team move by Lee Fogelin. Very sound defenseman for this Edmonton team.
Fogelin, one of the senior members of the Oilers. He was originally with Buffalo. And you see a problem with the glass that the rink attendants now work on.
Well, we may see Trottier right there getting a good stiff hit. And that is exactly why that glass came loose. But it has been all taken care of right now.
Gary, I don't know, as you look at Brian Trottier, and I wanted to ask you a question. When I talk to players around the league, they tell me he is the strongest, steadiest guy in his skates you'll run into, no matter how big in the league.
No question. My players in Washington used to say that pound for pound, Trottier is probably the strongest, and when he hits you, it hurts.
And offside again, as the pass came from inside that Islander blue line.
One thing that's happening right now, the Edmonton Oilers are trying to press, and as a result, Kenny Morrow and the defense for the Islanders are taking advantage of that. They're spotting their wingers way up high along that blue line and are hitting them with good, quick passes, thus catching the Edmonton forwards in deep. As a result, the Islanders may find themselves with some more good scoring opportunities as the Oilers try to play catch-up hockey.
You mentioned the Oilers and their problem in their own zone. The Islanders' game really is forechecking, and we've seen a lot of it tonight.
Forechecking, taking the body, getting that second man right in on top of the puck, and that makes it difficult for any defense in their own end zone for the Oilers tonight.
Here's Fogelin shooting it around in the boards. Now Lowe couldn't hold it in, and Keller breaks LaFontaine loose. Now Gillies. Gillies couldn't center it as Fogelin slid in front of the pass. And Pozar comes back for Edmonton, leaving it for Dave Lumley. Lumley now tried to center. Linsman too well covered. And Gillies is back to get it for the Islanders. Shooting it off the boards and down the ice, and Paul Coffey goes back to get it. Coffey, number 7. Pass at center, another two-line offside, and the faceoff will come back to inside the Edmonton blue line.
The Oilers, Paul Coffey, they're not the same team tonight. Their passing is not sharp. They're not skating the same way that they were. Now, again, we don't want to take anything away from the Islanders by any means, but we said it before, the Edmonton Oilers played maybe their finest hockey game we've seen them play in game number 1, and trying to repeat that tonight has been somewhat difficult for them. Still half the game yet to go, and the way things have gone tonight, anything could happen in the last half.
Here's Potvin shooting it around in the boards. Dwayne Sutter couldn't center it. Sutter and Kevin McClellan are now available for duty again after serving those 7 minutes in penalties. Puck shot in by Edmonton, and Deneen cleared it, knocked down by the Oilers. They try and center. Over on the other wing, it is Hunter. Hunter did center one, but Matt Celine, number 20, intercepts for New York, and back he comes. Celine trying to work around Huddy into a bad angle, shoots and shot it wide. Now Dwayne Sutter behind the net. Broken up and cleared by Huddy. Ahead to Hughes, now to Hunter. To Coffey. Paul Coffey, quick shot. Smith a stick save, and the Islanders quickly shoot it to center ice. Fire Paul Coffey back for Edmonton. The Oilers, the most explosive team in hockey history, trail by 3. It's 4-1 Islanders. Deneen back to Thomas Johnson, now to Brent Sutter, kicking it to Tonelli. Tonelli back to Brent Sutter, broken up, and the play is offside anyway, and the Edmonton blue line. The score, the Islanders 4, Edmonton 1. A reminder, you're watching USA Sports.
Well, you talk as you will about some of the Swedish players in the National Hockey League not playing aggressively. I think they can put that one aside because Matt Saline on that last shift, Dan, had about 2 or 3 good solid hits. He's 6'2", 200 and some pounds, and he plays aggressively.
Here's Gretzky racing after a loose puck, but Kenny Morrow cleared it away. Now Flatley, the Islander rookie, flips it to center ice. Jackson breaks it up, and number 17, Jari Kurri, the native of Finland, leaving it for Jackson. Don Jackson, number 29, plays the boards. Going in is Semenko with Morrow. Morrow able to work it to Flatley. He dropped it to Janssen. Now around on the boards to Tonelli. And there you see the Islanders work it beautifully out of their own end of the rink. Edmonton shoot it back in. Smith setting it up for Janssen, number 3. Over to Ken Morrow. Morrow cleared it off the boards into the Edmonton zone. It went off an Edmonton player, so there's no icing. Randy Gregg for the Oilers, who are trailing 4-1 to the big tough winger Semenko. He flips it into the Islander zone. Kenny Morrow back to get it. Cleared it behind the net, and Thomas Janssen now works it to Flatley, headmanning it to Trottier. Kevin Lowe takes Trottier out of the play, and Anderson clears the puck on the boards to Messier. Messier flipped one to Lowe. It was behind him. Dineen at center ice, intercepting, shoots it in, and Messier has it for Edmonton. Over to Lowe, now to Anderson. Here's Trottier trying to center. Dead. Bossy shot it wide. Now Trottier to Gilbert. And he deflected it, and as it rolled near the goal crease, Grant Fuhr grabbed it and held on.
Greg Gilbert just couldn't get good wood on it, but that line that played together for the majority of the season, Trottier, Bossy, and Gilbert, have been reunited tonight. At least from time to time they have been. Trottier, the tough-nosed center iceman between Gilbert and Bossy. Watch Trottier here. Bossy overskated the puck. Trottier looking for Gilbert, but Gilbert's got pretty good coverage there, as you can see. 2 Oilers right on top of him.
Earlier I mentioned Edmonton, the most explosive team in hockey history. This year, 446 goals for. That's an average of 5.57 goals a game. And it was 22 more than the Oilers scored a year ago when they also broke the record. So when they're behind 4-1, you don't say they're out of the game. They can score and score in a hurry.
Well, you can say that again. They've been known as a scoring machine.
Here the Islanders pot pass, shooting it around on the boards. Going back is Anderson. Dineen tying Anderson up. Now Anderson breaks loose, but Bossy checks in. Now Lowe giving it to Anderson. Cleared it on the boards to Fogelin. Fogelin to Willie Lindstrom, number 19. He moves it in, and Bossy is there to break it up. Now it's Anderson closing in. Fell with nobody around him. And then he and Potvin just slide in against the boards, against the puck. Well, a series after this game switches to Edmonton. Remember, Tuesday night we'll have Game 3 for you in this final series between the Oilers and the Islanders. Game time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on USA.
Dan, Gordy Dineen just made a good play there in front of the net area. Potvin got caught up. Oiler player forward. Bice stepped around him and caused a 2-on-1 situation. Dineen almost looked as though he was going to go for that player, but instead, very smartly so, turned aside, picked up his man in front of the net area, and Potvin was able to get back, cover up.
We're down to 6:44 left in the second period. Puck dropped, and Persson shoots it around on the boards to Gillies. Knocked down by Huddy. Shoots one. He blasted that wide. Now at the other point, Coffey. Behind the net to Lumley. Now to Linsman. In front to Posar. Smith is able to cover up on the loose puck at the side of the net.
So many times tonight, Billy Smith has been able to break up the offensive plays for the Oilers. Glenn Sather, I'm sure, has that on his mind right now. Smith very good at going around behind the net, quickly stopping those passes, and we know that the Edmonton Oilers like to feed Gretzky oftentimes around behind that net area. A couple of times Smith has hit him off at the pass.
That button, by the way, you saw on Glenn Sather's chest. There's a little button that says, "I love Mom." And of course, Mother's Day tomorrow. And Glenn Sather saying hello to his mom. over national television. Here's Linsman with a shot wide of the net. Now Gillies for New York. Tried to clear it. Coffey held it in. Now Huddy at the point, a shot. Boudelier blocks that. Huddy, a good play to hold it in to Lumley. Behind the net, centers it. Smith right there to cover it up. And a stoppage in play. For our local systems, we'll pause now. You're watching the NHL Stanley Cup 5 minutes, 53 seconds left in the second period. 4 cups in a row the Islanders have won. They're trying to become only the second team in Stanley Cup history to win 5 in a row. Thomas Janssen behind the net, unable to clear it. Here's Pat Hughes stealing it, gets it in front, but that puck went up high off his stick and over the glass and into the crowd.
You can see some Islander fans there expressing their beliefs in being number one. Meanwhile, Billy Smith, I don't think he's had the same type of night tonight that he had by any means in that game.
Allen, he shot it just wide. Now Hunter tried to hold it in. The Oilers do. Here's McClellan over to Hunter. Centered one. And Hughes just failed to tip that in. Then Trottier flat on the ice. Broke a rush up. And then they whistle the play down, I believe, ruling a hand pass from one Islander player to another.
Kevin Lowe coming onto the ice, but Trottier was the man that once again broke up an Oiler play. They have frustrated the Oilers tonight. Kevin Lowe, a guy that you see time and time out during practice, practicing blocking shots, something that I think you've got to have a lot of courage to do, first of all.
5:14 left in the second period, 4-1 Islanders. Gretzky against Trottier. Gretzky gets the draw to Fogelin, in behind the net to Semenko, but Smith out of the net. Now Semenko centered, but cleared away by Brent Sutter. Here's Lowe holding it in. Gorganin tried to knock it away. They rule the puck had been hit by a high stick.
High sticks, gloved ahead, a little of everything out there in tonight's game. Pat Flatley playing on that right side. Now he's back out there with Trottier and Brent Sutter. Al Arbour has really been mixing some line combinations up, as he can so well do.
Here's Gary Curry to Lowe at the point. Flips it into the corner. Brent Sutter trying to clear it. Did to the rookie Flatley, who deflects it to the Edmonton line. Fogelin passing to Semenko. Dave Semenko, checked from behind by Tonelli. Now Curry with the loose puck to Gretzky. Gretzky turned, fires. That hit Semenko and went wide. Now Fogelin at the point, shooting. Smith the save. And Smith apparently was clipped with a high stick. Exclusively on USA Sports, it's the Stanley Cup Finals.
Trottier out there once again, but as Al Arbour, almost as sure as his last name is Arbour, if you have a face-off in your own end zone, you'll see two center icemen out there, Brent Sutter and Trottier out there right now, along with Mike Botsy. But I think that Trottier would probably be the player coming off the ice.
And the Islanders quickly clear it out of there. Brent Sutter, I'm sure, didn't want to shoot it all that way down the ice, but he did. And even though the Islanders won the face-off, they immediately get an icing towel and will get another face-off back deep in their zone.
Glenn Sather felt tonight that the Islanders and Al Arbour might try to utilize that middle ice area a little bit more so. The Oilers felt that they controlled them fairly well along the boards areas. In game number one, felt the Islanders would adjust.
Here's Coffey blasting one wide. Now Boudelier for New York. Clears it down the ice. Racing back is Coffey, and again it will be icing against the New York Islanders. The Islanders with a 4-1 lead. And that's 3 times in the last 30 seconds or so they've fired the puck down the ice and been called for icing.
Oh, we are talking about awards coming up at the end of the season. Paul Coffey's name naturally came in there with Rod Langway, best defenseman. Coffey has improved his defensive play this year immensely. He's really matured as an athlete. Just has tremendous speed, and any defenseman that can score 40 goals for you, what an asset.
He's only 22 years of age still. And already in his 4th year in the league. Here's Lindstrom. moving in. His shot wide of the net. Now Coffey on the boards. Behind the net to Messier. Out in front. Backhander by Anderson. Over top of the net. And then Anderson and Smith collide in front of the goal, and Billy Smith went down. I think we may be going to get a penalty here against Edmonton. Exclusively on USA Sports, you're watching the Stanley Cup Finals.
The war between Billy Smith and Glenn Anderson continues. This time Anderson going to the penalty box. 2 minutes for high sticking. 16:05 is the time. Earlier in tonight's game, Anderson took the feed out of Billy Smith, sending Smith crashing to the ice. This time it was a high stick. Now let's take a look at it. I don't think he connected. He may have taken a pretty close swat there. Smith covering his helmet with his...
Stay tuned for more developments in that feud. That goes back to a year ago. Glenn Anderson and Billy Smith. Now Gregg shooting one to center. Here are the Islanders on a power play, dropping it into their own zone to Janssen. Now to Potvin. Cleared to center ice. Bossy stayed on side with a good play, but and Coffey broke it up and cleared it to center. Here's Potvin to Janssen. Into the center ice area to Trotte. Long pass on left wing to Gillies. Clark Gillies back to Potvin. Got behind the net, cleared away. And now Coffey. Couldn't clear it. Here's Bossy in front of Gillies. He shoots, he scores! Clark Gillies!
Clark Gillies says there's nothing to this game of hockey, at least not in playoffs anyway. He's really gotten his game together. There he goes with the backhand that he puts by Grant Fuhr. Nice setup here. Bossy tried to get it across to Potvin. Potvin just let it go. It ends up on Clark Gillies' stick. Once again, not much coverage on Clark Gillies. There you'll see him all alone as he was on the Islanders' third goal tonight. Clark Gillies making things look easy.
Clark Gillies, second of the night, is ninth of the playoffs. Remember, he got only 12 in the regular season. Now it is 5-1 Islanders as we get a stoppage in play and a face-off coming back inside the Edmonton blue line. 16:48 the time, a power play goal. The second power play goal of this game for the Islanders. And they've had power play trouble, so that's been a factor tonight.
Well, they really have. And Al Arbor mentioned that after game number 1 that we have to improve on our power play. It looks as though they have.
Now Edmonton trailing by 4. Semenko and Morrow into the corner. Puck coming loose. Here's Gretzky at the side of the net. Flipped it in front. Curry couldn't get it. And Flatley shoots it away to Tonelli. 2-on-1 break. Tonelli with Baudelaire. Tonelli shot and fired it wide. Puck comes to center and Flatley back to get it. Cleared it. Gretzky then picked it up, but a couple of Edmonton players were already in the zone offside. Semenko and Yeri Curry.
Well, just before that, back in the Islanders' end zone. What tremendous coverage the Islanders have had on the Oilers in front of that net area. You can see Gretzky and Semenko going to the penalty box. Here you'll see that hit right on Pat Flatley. That's the second time tonight that the Oilers have taken Flatley out of the play really hard right in front of their own bench. Dave Semenko, the bearded Dave Semenko, once fought Muhammad Ali last summer. Only for charity, though, and only a sparring match.
Here's Jackson getting the puck into the Islanders zone. Dennis Potvin there to clear it. Now in behind the goal, Lumley for Edmonton. Trying to get free from the shackles of LaFontaine. Gets it to Lindsman. Back to Jackson. That shot off a stick. It may have hit Smith's stick and deflected wide. Now the Oilers. Bozar breaking one up to number 13, Lindsman. Kenny Lindsman moving in. Checked in the play. And as the puck comes into the corner, Lumley hesitates in touching it because it's going to be called because of a hand pass, and the faceoff will come outside the Islander blue line. Brian Lewis, the referee. It's 5-1. The Islanders leading Edmonton. Well, in our upcoming intermission, Al Krutwig has the pleasure of talking to one of the great Stanley Cup playoff coaches. Caller passing it in across the line. Randy Gregg couldn't get it. Now the rookie LaFontaine spins away from a check. Back to Potvin. Shoots one. Pure to his knees to stop that. And now Randy Gregg, number 21, works his way in. His shot, a rising shot that Smith caught and held on to. Randy Gregg, as well as being a pro hockey player, also a medical doctor, and now something develops in behind the net. Anders Kaller is there, so is Lindsman. Now Gilbert is into it, so is Pozar. This is game 2 of the 1984 Stanley Cup Final. The Editors trying for their 5th in a row. 5th Stanley Cup, that is, and trying to tie this series at 1 game apiece. As the next 3 games will head to Edmonton and the Northlands Coliseum. And you'll see game 3 at 9 o'clock Tuesday night here on USA, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. Here's what happened in behind the net. It almost got something developed. Meanwhile, the faceoff moved outside the blue line. Messier out with Anderson and Lindstrom. For the Editors, it's Trache, Gilbert, and Bossy. Puck is taken by Fogelin, shot near the New York line. Kenny Morrow firing it to center ice. Messier knocks that down and low. Beats Fogelin. Now to Lindstrom. We're in the final minute of the second period. Lindstrom pinned in against the boards. And Baudelaire was the man that held him there. Baudelaire, the 21-year-old defenseman. Another former Islander first-round draft choice. The Islanders have drafted well, and it's reaped them dividends of 4 Stanley Cups in a row. Here's Bossy. Shoots Trache. Couldn't get around the defenseman low. Now Morrow at center ice over to Gilbert. A couple of Oilers collide. Messier knocks the puck back into his own zone, and here's Glenn Anderson. Clearing one over to Lindstrom, now to Lowe, ahead to Messier. Messier moves in. His shot. Stick save by Smith. Trache behind the net. Ridden out of the play. Now Messier trying to get the puck. Does get it in front, but Bossy intercepts. And Bossy cleared it away for New York. The Oilers with 8 seconds left in the period. Anderson, a long bouncer. Smith handles that. Clears it around on the boards. Trache poked it near the line, and there's the buzzer to end the second period here at the Nassau Coliseum. Shots on goal in the second period favored New York by a margin of 9-6 in the game. Shots favor the Editors 21-18. There you see Billy Smith heading for the bench. Coming up, the former great Toronto Maple Leaf general manager and coach, George Punch Imlach, visits our USA studio with Al Krutwig. The score after 2 periods of play, the Islanders 5, Edmonton 1. Our intermission activities coming right up. At the end of 2 periods of play, the New York Islanders 5, the Edmonton Oilers 1. Scoring summary of the second period, Brian Trottier at 4:52 to make it 4-1, and then a power play goal by Clark Gillies at 16:48 to make it 5-1. The shots on goal favored the Islanders in that second period 9-6. This Stanley Cup playoff game is brought to you by Honda, makers of the Prelude. Dan Kelly up in the broadcast booth. I think if you watch that second period, one of the interesting things, the Oilers were held off the score sheet. The Islanders scored 2 goals. They did not have a shot on goal for some 12 minutes, but Trottier's goal made it 4-1 at 4:52. The next shot they had on goal was the power play goal by Gillies. So I guess you could say the Islanders are making the best of their scoring chances. Again, I hearken back to the early part of this game. The Oilers got off to a bad start, I think mainly because of being penalized, and the Islander power play, which has been something of a mystery and has not been very sharp here in all of the Stanley Cup playoffs this year, has clicked for 2 goals. That's something that Al Arbour complained about after game 1, and if the Islander power play can get going, that'll be a big plus. Another of the things about the game tonight, the Islanders game is a forechecking game, and their forechecking, they have caused Edmonton to not look as sharp in their own end of the rink as they did in the first game. And it's not necessarily the Oilers not playing as well. Give the Islanders credit. They're a forechecking, hard-hitting hockey team, and when they play that type of game, that's their game, and I think that's how they got on the Oilers early in the game. Meanwhile, it's going to take quite a turnaround by Edmonton to get back in this game because they trail 5-1. Meanwhile, if there ever was a team that has the offensive potential to do it, it's this Glenn Sather Edmonton Oilers Hockey Club. Remember, the series switches to Edmonton for the next 3 games, and we'll be following that action for you on USA. Third period about to begin. The overall shots on goal in the game favor the Islanders 21-18, and yet on 21 shots the Islanders have scored 5 goals, so they are making the best of their scoring chances, or taking advantage of the scoring chances they have. Glenn Sather, the former hard-nosed winger as a player, now the general manager and president and coach of the Edmonton Oilers Hockey Club. A very sharp young man, Glenn Sather. We move to third period action with the Islanders leading 5-1. Kenny Linsman against LaFontaine, and the puck immediately into the New York zone. Boudelier clearing it to Clark Gillies. Drops it to Morrow. Ahead on the wing to Keller, but Lowe pokes it away. Pozar for Edmonton to Lumley. Boudelier knocked it down. Now Gillies trying to set up LaFontaine. Here's Fogelin shooting it in. Morrow goes back to get it. Smith cleared it to Anders Keller. The Islanders work it over on the wing to Clark Gillies. He's pinned it against the boards. And we get a stoppage in play and a face-off in the New York Islander end of the rink.
It'll be interesting to see in this next 20 minutes of play, 19 minutes and 29 seconds to be exact, whether or not Al Arbour and his team will be able to play the same style of game that they've been able to play so far, and whether they'll be able to keep Glenn Sather and his Edmonton Oilers off the scoreboard. 5-1 the score right now. The Oilers can be so explosive. Once during the Minnesota series, in fact, I think it was Dave Lumley that took a 5-minute major, came in the dressing room at the end of the second period and told his teammates to, please guys, get me off the hook. Well, they did. In fact, they scored 4 goals.
Explosive is the name of this Edmonton club. Here's McClellan to Anderson. Shoots. Deflected by Messier just wide. Now Flatley cleared it. Messier knocks it down, and here is Paul Coffey firing it in, but the play goes offside at the New York Islander blue line.
Paul Coffey, a rushing defenseman, and when you watch Coffey play, the way that he can wheel out of his own end zone, he creates so many scoring opportunities for his teammates with that ability to just pick up speed and go with it. John Muckler, the assistant coach to Glenn Sather. Ted Green, also an assistant coach, a former NHL player, up in the press box area.
Here are the Islanders working the puck to center, but Messier dumps it right back in for Edmonton. Smith leaving it there, now flatly into the corner, tied up by Anderson. The Oilers center it. It comes to Huddy. Huddy shoots from the point. That's deflected wide. Now Anderson out in front, shooting. That was blocked at the defense end, cleared away by New York. Puck comes near the Edmonton line. Huddy back to get it. Charlie Huddy ahead to Kevin McClellan. Now the Islanders break it up. Here's Stanley with McClellan, and now Gretzky gets free. Working it over onto the wing to Coffey. A rising shot that Smith blocked. Janssen in the corner with Coffey. Coffey trying to freeze it there and force a face-off, and he succeeds. And it will be in the circle to the right of the Islander goal.
Well, with all of those goals and assists that he's been able to accumulate through the course of 80 regular season games, and also during playoffs, Wayne Gretzky is having a tough time putting the puck in the net. Now, we had mentioned in game number 1 that I had expected anyway that Gretzky may explode this year in the finals and playoffs, but he's having a tough time doing that, mainly because of the coverage of Brian Trottier and also Brent Sutter.
Yeah, do they do anything differently as a team defense to stop Gretzky? Is there some secret the Islanders use?
Well, Gretzky loves to set up behind that net area. He's great in front of the net area, and those are all areas the Islanders are taking away.
Here's Gretzky stealing one, gets it in front, and Hunter was wide open but shot it wide. Bossy back for New York. Trying to feed it to Gilbert, and the play is offside at the Edmonton blue line. Coast-to-coast coverage of the Stanley Cup Championship is only on USA Sports. At the Nassau Coliseum, you think he's got Stanley Cup in his mind?
I don't know, but those medals, all those souvenirs must be pretty heavy.
The Islanders 5, Edmonton 1, 17:40 left in regulation time. And the Oilers, Lee Fogelin, number 2, carries to center ice. Firing it in. Here's a chance for Pozar, blocked at the Islander defense, and a stoppage in play anyway because of an offside.
Dan, I was told that the real reason that things turned around here for the New York Islanders with this franchise is when Al Arbour came here. Well, we're seeing a replay here of a shot taken. Al Arbour came in 73 with his team. Dennis Potvin came the same year. Those two things really turned things about. Your brother, I believe, Hal Kelly, was the broadcaster, came that exactly the same year. I think maybe he helped turn things around with his franchise as well.
Yeah, Hal was the Islander broadcaster at one time. He's following our telecast down in Tarpon Springs, Florida, and we send our best to he and his family. Here's Boudelier for the Islanders, feeding it to Anders Keller. The Islanders with a 5-1 lead. Boudelier passing it over to Keller on right wing. He moves in, shoots high off the glass. Now Boudelier flipping it in on the boards. Puck back of the net, and Kevin Lowe clears it to Pozar. Jaroslav Pozar, number 10, the Czechoslovak winger, knocked down at the blue line in a tangle with Stefan Pearson. Now Gillies comes over, and he knocked Lumley on the seat of his pants. Well, they always say, leave Big Jethro alone. Leave him sleep. If he gets mad, bodies start to fly, don't they?
One flick of the wrist, and there goes Dave Lumley. Well, Dave Lumley is not too happy about it right now. He's having some words, but fairly distant, quite a ways away from Clark Gillies. Clark Gillies just came in and sent Dave Lumley very abruptly on his rear end. Jaroslav Pozar getting knocked off by Stefan Pearson there. Watch how he goes into the boards. Very hard. He was all right, though. But right after that, then comes Clark Gillies right behind him, smashing into Lumley. And then right after that, Lumley was put right on the seat of his pants.
I don't think there would be a more respected player as far as the toughness of this game in the NHL than Clark Gillies.
No question about that. Players used to say if Gillies wasn't having a great game, just let him sleep out there. Don't wake him up, because when you wake him up and he gets mad, look out.
Here's Stanley, number 27 for the Islanders, centering one. Nobody in front of the net, and Edmonton just clear it to center. Morrow Dropping it to Janssen. Janssen to Morrow. The Editors with a 4-goal lead. Take no chance as they work it out of their zone. Now Tonelli to Flatley, but that play is offside at the Edmonton Oilers blue line. The Editors with their disciplined type of play. As you look at Andy Moog, the backup goaltender for Edmonton, they've made the Oilers' offensive machine look very ordinary tonight.
They really have, Dan. They've stopped the Oilers many times, even in the neutral ice area, and that's something that if you can stop the Oilers from winding up, getting that blue line, then you're really going to shut down their scoring abilities. The Islanders have done that well. They're taking away any momentum.
Here's a chance for Bossy in all alone, and he shot wide. Oh, Mike Bossy with a great chance. Back comes Gretzky to Yeri Curry. Leaving it for Gretzky. Gretzky cuts in front. His shot blocked at the defense, and Gilbert gets it. Now Hunter and Gilbert fight. Hunter coming up with it. Around behind the net for Gretzky. He missed it. Randy Gregg centers to Yeri Curry. Curry into Gretzky. Gretzky back to Gregg at the point. Gregg shot blocked. Gretzky over to try and get the loose puck. Flipped it in, but Potvin comes back for New York. Potvin firing it in. And the Oilers' Jackson works it in low to knock it away. Here's Fogelin to Gretzky. Gretzky moving in. Tried up by LaFontaine. Now Curry. Shotted wide. Here's Lowe into the corner. Lowe tried to center one. Did. Comes off the glass and comes back. Well, here's a check you saw moments ago on Gretzky. Clark Gillies knocking down the great Oilers center iceman, who's now seated on the Edmonton bench. Linsman out there with Lumley and Pozar against Goring, Gillies, and Dwayne Sutter. The Editors just chased back into their own zone to get a puck. Goodelier to Goring. Now to Dwayne Sutter. Shot near the Edmonton line and low. Number 4 back for Edmonton. Riveted around on the boards to Fogelin. Broken up by Gillies. High off the glass. Here's Kershaw into Gillies. Centered one and Lowe knocked it away. Kevin Lowe clearing it. Stolen by Dwayne Sutter to Goring. A shot. You're the save and the rebound taken by Lumley. Edmonton starts back. Lumley number 20. Pozar over anxious and in ahead of the play. Offside on left wing.
Well, you know one thing. The Edmonton Oilers are not going to outnumber the New York Islanders coming into the Islanders' end zone. In the way that the Islander defense are standing up, it's going to make it very difficult for the Oilers to get anything going. Only 14 minutes, 16 seconds remaining. Down 4 goals. I don't know whether it's going to be possible this evening for this Oiler team to come back.
The Oilers can score like nobody else in the hockey business, but these Islanders are a disciplined defensive team. Here's Huddy clearing it in. Now a chance for McClellan. In on goal, and he shot it high. Off the glass. Coffey held it in, but his pass went up high and off an Islander player over the glass and into the crowd. If you're going to play catch-up hockey, if you're the explosive Edmonton Oilers, this, I think, would be the toughest team to play catch-up against in hockey.
Certainly the best challenge that you would have in front of you. Clark Gillies, Trottier, the rest of the Islanders can perform extremely defensively. Tremendous discipline.
Puck is loose in the center ice area. Mark Messier, number 11, back to get it. Messier giving it to Anderson. Number 9, Glenn Anderson with a pass to Huddy that is too far ahead. Goes the length of the ice. Johnson back to get it. And Edmonton, because of that close Islander checking, forced to dump it all the way down the ice, and they're called for icing on the play.
Well, Thomas Johnson has had a heck of a playoff series for the New York Islanders. Al Arbour thinks a great deal of this young Swedish defenseman, the way that he can put that puck on the net, carry it out of his own zone. Very smart when it comes to making those passes. 90% passers, that's what coaches look for in this league. Guys that can put that puck right on their teammate's stick.
Gary, you mentioned an interesting stat at the outset. Only 7 times in 45 years of best-of-7 Stanley Cup finals has a team lost the opener of the finals and come back to win.
It really is a surprising statistic, isn't it?
That's the Islanders' dilemma as they try and tie this series up. Messier clears one to center, and Trottier has it there over to Dennis Potvin. Potvin clearing it in. Knocked away by Anderson. Now Dineen held it in, but here we go with a fight. Dineen and Messier on the boards. Gord Dineen and Mark Messier.
Well, right now, Messier's got a little bit of an advantage because he's got that sweater over the head of Gord Dineen. That's why they have tie downs, to try and keep that sweater from coming up over the player's head.
Well, we will have the linesmen separating Dineen and Messier. We'll have penalties. As you see, Leon Stickle with Messier in tow. For our local systems, we're going to pause right here. The Stanley Cup Finals are coming to you on USA Sports. There you see Gord Dineen in the penalty box. There's Messier as they both are set up. Messier 2 for high sticking, 5 for fighting. And Dineen 2 for charging, 5 for fighting. Coincidental majors involved. There you see the rookie Dineen, who had his jersey pulled up over his head. So here's how it all began.
Well, there you can see that Gord Dineen ended up doing battle with Messier, but he'd kind of taken a run at a Oiler forward just prior to that. The Oiler forward sidestepped him, and he ended up with Mark Messier in front of him. Well, that's why they are both in the penalty box right now. They decided to square off. Referee Brian Lewis assessing them 7 minutes.
Here are the Islanders with a 5-1 lead on the offense, but Edmonton clear it to center. Morrow shooting it back in. And Huddy, number 22, back to play the puck. Icing called against New York. Gary, have the Oilers not been as good tonight, or is it the Islanders making them not be as good?
Well, if you judge in the way that the Edmonton Oilers played in the very first game, if you take a look at the Oiler bench and Charlie Huddy, they are not performing anywhere as close to their potential. Anyway, if you base game number 1 as being their peak or their potential, they're not passing the puck the way they're capable of. They're not skating, but yet, then again, the New York Islanders are playing much better their style of game, their grinding style. They're taking the body, they're breaking up the plays, they're doing a little bit of that interference, holding up the Oilers, trying to stop them from coming into the Islanders' end zone. And of course, Billy Smith has been there when called upon.
Here's Hughes dumping it in for Edmonton. Morrow back to get it as the Islanders clear it on left wing. And racing after it, Brent Sutter, number 21. Sutter cuts in, lets the shot go. Blocked at the defense on a good play by Jackson. Now the Oilers come back. Shot in by Hughes. Smith sets it up behind the net for Morrow. And Ken Morrow works it nicely to the rookie Pat Flatley. Now to Brent Sutter, tipped into the Edmonton zone. And Randy Gregg for the Oilers. Cleared it to Jackson. Jackson lost it. Now Brent Sutter in to get the loose puck. Sutter to Baudelaire at the point. Fired it behind the net. Canelli knocked down by Gregg on the play. Kaller gets the puck in front to Brent Sutter. He's checked, and now Baudelaire back at his own line to Morrow. Here's Kenny Morrow to Anders Kaller. Down at the center. Back comes Gretzky. Gretzky with a drop pass. Bozar backhander high off the glass. Now Kaller, number 28 for the Islanders. Shot it around in the boards. Gretzky in to pull down Baudelaire, and Gretzky will get a penalty here, much to the delight of this crowd at the Nassau Coliseum. Gretzky to the penalty box. For our local systems, we'll pause here. The Stanley Cup Finals are coming to you on USA. Wayne Gretzky, a hooking call, 8:30 the time. And here you see the play as he did hook Paul Baudelaire down.
Now pulled Baudelaire right to the ice, and the fans here in the building very happy that Gretzky gets the penalty.
Look at this match earlier between Jackson and Tonelli at the side of the net.
They've had something going through the course of Game 1 and Game 2.
I think every defenseman has something going with Tonelli, the way he buzzes and bangs you around in front of that net. The Islanders in control of this game, leading 5-1 as Janssen gives it to Potvin on this New York power play. Potvin shooting it in. Cleared around in the boards. And Hughes heads it to center ice, broken up by Hunter. Now picked up by Kevin Lowe. He moves in. Janssen there to knock it away, and here's Dennis Potvin as the Islanders come back with Wayne Sutter to Gillies. Gillies couldn't get around the defenseman Fogelin. And Lee Fogelin flips it down into the Islanders zone. New York, Potvin back, and the Islanders attack again on this power play, but Anderson is all over Dennis Potvin. Now Janssen comes back to help up. Janssen turns, gives it to Potvin. This pass on right wing to Sutter, broken up, and the Oilers control again.
Islanders having a difficult time getting out of their own end zone even to get set up. The Oilers, remember, scoring 36 shorthanded goals during the course of the regular season, are very dangerous even when they're killing a penalty.
There's Trottier on this Islander power play. The Islander power play has clicked for a couple of goals tonight. Bossy had the puck on the boards but couldn't control it. Now Bossy again. Knocked down. Anderson coming up with it. And he shoots it off the boards down to the Islander end of the rink again. The Islanders, I mentioned Gary, troubled with the power play in the playoffs. Here's Curry stealing one, but he's tied up by Janssen. Now a chance over to Coffey. Broken up. And here comes Gilbert to Bossy. The pass too far ahead. Anyway, the Islanders tonight have scored twice in the power play. What's been the difference? Has it been a marked improvement in their power play?
Well, I think, first of all, that during the course of the Montreal series, their power play improved, and obviously by the way that they played tonight, it has improved greatly. Back on the points, where so often your power play stems from, at least in your own end zone it does. You need that great quarterback to come out of your own end zone with it. And once you do get possession of it in the opposition's end zone, so much of the play is set up from the point areas. And I think that's where Al Arbour was a little disturbed with his defensemen. They were not really playing the points well. We're not getting those opportunities and setting their forwards up. Potvin and Pearson back in the lineup playing as steadily as they have tonight means a great deal to their power play.
Shots on goal are only 22-20 in favor of the Islanders. But the Islanders have scored 5 times and lead Edmonton 5-1. Funny game. The other night they had 34 shots, couldn't get a goal. Tonight 22 shots and they have 5. Explain that, Coach.
No, I can't, Dan. There's absolutely no way possible.
Here's the loose puck taken by Dwayne Sutter. Dumps it in. The Islanders chase in after it. Now Edmonton back at full strength as Gretzky has served his penalty. Here is the pass at center to Gretzky into Lumley. Back to Gretzky. Gretzky in front of the net to Lindsman. That's the save. Now Lumley trying to center one did, but Goring knocked it away to number 12, Dwayne Sutter. Shoots one, and Fiore about 20 feet out of the net to cut down the angle, made a glove save and held on to it.
Well, Fiore likes to come out and cut down those angles. I haven't seen him come out that far in this series so far, but with Dwayne Sutter on that right side coming down almost all alone, Fiore just decided it was time to go out and cut that angle down. There you'll see it. Sutter just over the blue line, winds up from a far off angle, but look how far Grant Fiore is out of his net.
The 21-year-old Oiler goaltender and the main architect of a Game 1 victory for Edmonton, Grant Fiore. Here's a quick shot that Fiore steers to the corner. Now Lumley, number 20 for Edmonton. At center to Lindsman. Kenny Lindsman trying to work it through to Pozar. Knocked down by Persson. Stefan Persson with a lead pass to Keller. That goes the length of the ice. This will be icing against the Islanders. And we're down to 8:47 left in the third period of this game.
Well, there you saw just another good example of what the Islanders are doing to the Oilers tonight. The Oilers even trying those drop passes once they gain the blue line. And as soon as they pick up the drop pass, they move to the center ice area. But always an Islander there in front of them.
That's Gord Dineen in the penalty box. He and Messier still serving their penalties. Meanwhile, Gary, with the next 3 games in Edmonton, it was almost imperative for the Islanders to win this game tonight.
Crucial, and I'm sure that every single Islander player felt that. Because because of that 3 games back in Edmonton that, well, they may have found themselves down 2 games to nothing in the Montreal series. Couldn't afford to do it in this series.
Puck is loose on the boards. Lumley carries in. He's bumped by Pearson, but the play was offside anyway at the New York Islander blue line.
Still puts the Islanders in a pretty tough situation, even if they do, and assuming that they do win tonight, because with those next 3 games in the Coliseum out in Edmonton, then, well, that's all it would take for the Edmonton to end up wrapping up this series. But as Punch Imlach said in between periods, the Islanders have won on the road before. They like to win on the road. You can bet they will win on the road.
Sometimes I think the Islanders in crucial situations better on the road than they even do at home. Didn't they do that against Washington?
Well, they did play extremely well in Washington, both this year and last year.
A couple of years ago, they did the same thing against Vancouver. They played better in Vancouver than they did in their home rink. Here's Pearson, number 7 for New York. Working it into Gillies, who scored a couple of big goals for New York tonight. Now Goring back to the net, trying to center wide. Clark Gillies back to Pearson. Over to the other point to Boudelier. Boudelier into Dwayne Sutter, now around on the boards into the other corner. Gillies takes a hit, but got the puck into the corner to Dwayne Sutter. He gives it to Goring. Goring trying to get away from Linsman, and now Fogelin moves in. And we get a stoppage in play, and also Linsman and Dwayne Sutter get nose to nose and have a word or two. For our local systems, we'll pause now. The Stanley Cup Championship Series is coming to you on USA. Their respective coaches, Glenn Sather on the left, Al Arbor on the right. Arbor and his Islanders leading 5-1 on the verge of tying up this series at 1 game apiece.
Well, I think Glenn Sather said it best. We've watched and we've learned from playing against the Islanders last year. No question, the Oilers are a much more mature team.
Meanwhile, the Oilers, Gary, as Johnsson tried to clear it, Gregg held it in for Edmonton, but Johnsson there to intercept, and here's Pat Flatley. The Oilers, meanwhile, have to be very happy coming into Long Island and being able to split these first 2 games.
That's exactly all they were hoping to do. Priority coming here was to split.
Puck shot down the ice, going back. Jackson, number 29, icing a call against New York and a face-off back in the Islander zone.
Now, mind you, they would have liked to have won both games here, as any team would, but seriously speaking, if they could win 1 game out of the 2 here in the Island, that they figured put them in a pretty good position. Well, with only 7 minutes and 28 seconds remaining and down 4 goals, pretty much fait accompli, I would think. Even though the Oilers can score a lot of goals very quickly, not the way they're playing tonight. The passing, their whole overall offensive play has not been with the sharpness that they can usually perform at, and again, the Islanders have had a lot to do with that.
Here's McClellan from the faceoff with a shot wide, and Flatley works it to Brent Sutter, now to Trottier. Trottier, number 19. He's been a driving force in this Islander lead tonight. Now Edmonton trying to move out of there. Anderson across the center, dumps it in. Going in is McClellan, trying to center one. Now on the boards, Anderson got it behind the net. Smith there to clear it away. Jackson held it in, but here's Morrow for New York. Pass to Brent Sutter. Knocked away by Gregg, and Gregg feeds McClellan, number 24. McClellan with a long shot. Smith handles that. Boudelier back for the Islanders. Ahead to Trottier. Now on left wing to Tonelli. Tonelli couldn't center it. Curry for Edmonton to Coffey, now to Pozar, but he missed it. Gretzky took it, and then it's called back on another 2-line offside play.
Well, the great Gretzky, I'm sure, a little bit frustrated right now with this score and with his inability to get onto that scoreboard tonight. Gretzky, just such a fine playmaker, is constantly looking. He's not the least bit selfish. No one could ever say that about Wayne Gretzky. Always looking to set up his teammates. Well, when he's looked tonight, those players have been covered.
Here are the Islanders. Bossy moving in. Drops it back to Johnsson. Johnsson returned to Bossy. Bossy shoots high off the glass. Fuhr had to duck. Now Gilbert to Potvin. He held it in, gives the pass to Bossy. Bossy back to Dennis Potvin. In behind the net. Knocked away by Pure. Greg Gilbert getting it to Bossy, to Trottier. Back to Bossy. Big save by Pure. As you see the magic of Trottier and Bossy there. And now Bossy trying to center, and Pure able to get his glove on it and held it for a faceoff. Trottier and Bossy. Somebody once said they go together like ham and egg.
You can't have one without the other. Well, I think that in both cases, Trottier and Bossy, now that Al Arbour looks as though he's reunited them, they just know where each other is going to be in so many cases. There you see a great save, though, by Grant Fuhr. Even though this game seems to be a little bit out of reach, Fuhr still coming up with some big saves.
Meanwhile, Gary, we're down to 6 minutes left in this game. The Oilers, the big explosive team that scored more goals this year than any other team ever. You look at that scoreboard, they've had only 2 goals in 2 games against the Islanders. That tells you some kind of defense the Islanders are playing.
Sure does. Something doesn't add up out there, but you watch the way that the New York Islanders can perform from the red line back into their own net. You can understand why.
Here's Boudelier clearing one to center ice. Taken there by Lowe, over to Fogelin. Fogelin got it to center. Lumley, number 20, now to Linsman. Linsman moving in on left wing. Linsman into the corner, trying to drop it to Semenko. Big Dave Semenko on the boards. He's tied up. Oilers drop it to Lowe at the point. Over to Fogelin at the other point. His shot off a stick over the glass. Every time an Edmonton player gets a chance to shoot, there seems to be an Islander there to block it. We're coming down to the final minutes of this game here on USA Sports. What you see the time remaining? 5 minutes, 15 seconds. The Islanders with a 5-1 lead, and the Islanders seem to have a lock on this game, Gary, all through this period.
Well, that they do, but Al Arbour, I'm sure, is telling his players right now, never let up on this Edmonton Oiler team. We want to play 60 good minutes of hockey tonight, and that still means playing 5 minutes and 14 seconds of good disciplined hockey. That is a challenge always.
5-1, the Islanders leading. Boudelier shooting it on the boards to Dwayne Sutter. He pokes it to center, and Fogelin, number 2, back for Edmonton. Lost it, gets it right back again. Fogelin cleared, and there's Dwayne Sutter to intercept again. The Oilers have been completely handcuffed by this Islander team here in this period. There's a long pass. Morrow back for the Islanders to clear it. And now Dwayne Sutter almost got into it with Semenko. Meanwhile, a penalty coming up against Semenko, the big, tough Edmonton winger. We're down to 4:44 left in regulation time. We'll be right back on USA. Well, there's Dave Semenko. He's off for roughing. 15-16 of the third period. The time he flattened Dwayne Sutter on the play, and the Islanders will have a power play.
Good discipline by Dwayne Sutter. He decided his team was in the lead, and there's no use getting into it with Semenko at this point in time. Right now, some fans behind the Oiler bench throwing some things, and Glenn Sather, I think, calling for some security. If you recall, last year in Stanley Cup Finals, there was some action behind that Oiler bench as well in this building. Something that very much bothered Glenn Sather and his players.
Whatever was thrown, I believe, almost hit Wayne Gretzky on the Edmonton bench. And the Oilers are pointing back in behind their bench area to some fans.
Well, there's no need for that the least bit. Fans should stay out of it, enjoy the game, but when you start throwing things at the players, and you're just asking for trouble, and it's really not going to help this game out the least bit. Sather just very cool and calm, a little smile on his face, not letting the crowd get to him the least bit. And I think, Dan, that symbolizes somewhat the maturity also of the Edmonton Oilers. Last year, things seemed to bother them somewhat, and Billy Smith was our Islanders. Sather and his players said that's just one game, and we're just happy to be here, and everything that you would want your players to say anyway. You don't want to spark any motivation on the opposition's part. Don't put any fuel on the fire.
Sather, with a grin on his face, has something to say to Brian Lewis. Meanwhile, a very serious man at the other bench, Al Arbor, the Islander coach. We have 4 minutes, 44 seconds left in regulation time. And the Islanders are going to get a power play out of this once we resume play. I believe they're going to usher a couple of fans out of that area near the Edmonton bench. The Islanders tonight are 2 for 5 on the power play. This is their 6th power play advantage of the game. There's Potvin to Tonelli, dropping it to Janssen. Up front, the Islanders have Brent Sutter, Flatley, and Tonelli. Here's Dennis Potvin. Working it over to Brent Sutter, shot in, and Randy Gregg clears it away. And the Islanders have to go back. Potvin, who's played a much stronger game here in Game 2 than he did in Game 1, and that's been a big plus for the Islanders. Now the tough rookie Flatley dumping it in. Fuhr cleared it on the boards. Shot out of there by Messier. Janssen back near his own blue line. For New York, over to Potvin. Potvin now clearing it into the corner. Here's Janssen winding it to Dennis Potvin. The Islanders with a big 4-goal lead. Work it to Tonelli. Now Janssen. Over to Potvin. Cleared to center ice. Jackson intercepting that. Number 29. The big Edmonton defenseman to Messier. He drops it to Jackson. Over to Randy Gregg. Edmonton shorthanded as Gregg fires it in for Gretzky. Knocked away from him. And Trottier dropping it to Baudelaire behind the Islander goal. 3:18 left in regulation time. Baudelaire to Deneen, now to Bossy, to Trottier. The Islanders on the power play. Trottier to Deneen. Shot deflected by Gillies. Shot wide as Gillies just missed getting the hat trick. Here's Trottier to Deneen. Over to Baudelaire. Into Trottier to Gillies. He shoots, he scores! The hat trick for Clark Gillies. And a 6-1 Islander lead.
Well, Clark Gillies is making it look so easy out there, scoring goals in playoffs. He may well turn into be a 50-goal scorer next year if he can keep this pace. Watch Gillies. He's so big and strong in front of that net area. Watch how he releases his puck. He no sooner gets it than lets it go right away.
Not a bad pass by Trottier.
No, I was just going to say, look at the superb pass that Trottier laid on Gillies' stick. You couldn't ask for a finer pass.
So Clark Gillies gets the hat trick, and the Islanders lead 6-1. And numerous hats have been thrown onto the ice. They nickname him Jethro. He's a big, strong winger. And tonight, he's fired in a hat trick for the Islanders.
Well, he's a pretty classy athlete as well, Dan, and I think that says a lot for him. I know that every Islander player is really overjoyed by the way that Clark Gillies has come alive in playoffs. They are all plugging for him, and I think that they are all quite pleased to see things working out well for Big Jethro.
Gillies' 10th goal of the playoffs. Baudelaire and Trottier the assist. 17:04 the time. The Islanders' 3rd power play goal of this game. And it's 6-1 New York.
That could be a very important ingredient as well. Take a look at the rest of the series coming up. The fact that the Islanders have got their power play working. Tic-tac-toe tonight. It has to be a little scary for the Edmonton Oilers.
What's that do to the young goaltender Fuhr, who was so spectacular in Game 1, getting 6 fired behind him tonight?
I think, Dan, that Punch Imlach said it well in between periods. Doesn't matter how many goals you have scored against you. You start all over 0-0 next game. Let's go back to Al Trotwick in the studio.
Green, just a moment to thank the sponsors for Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Championship, which has been brought to you by the Stroh Brewery, makers of Stroh's, Old Milwaukee, and other fine beers. By Levi's Menswear, makers of Levi's Action Slacks and Action Jeans. By the all-new Toyota Corolla Sport Liftback, reborn for 1984, now at your local Toyota dealer. By Cooper Tools, the difference between work and workmanship. And by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? Back to you, Danny Gary.
There's Clark Gillies, the man of the hour or the man of the night. Only 12 goals through the regular season, but he's had 10 in the playoffs.
Well, he's not far off from a candidate for the Conn Smythe Award either, Dan, the way that he has played during the course of playoffs so far. A lot of hockey yet to come, though, in the Stanley Cup Championship round.
He leads the Auditors in goal production with 10, and it's 6-1 New York. Puck is into the Auditor zone. Deneen around to the boards to Gilbert. Over to Baudelaire as the Auditors with this one locked. Over on the wing, LaFontaine to Baudelaire, and the play goes offside at the Edmonton line. And now Greg Gilbert getting into it on the boards with one of the Oilers.
I believe it's Mark Messier, I thought, that Gilbert was exchanging some words with. Now all the players on the ice getting into it. You can see that high-angle camera giving us a pretty good view. Referee Ron Finn and Leon Stickle trying to break it up, but apparently Kenny Linsman, not Messier, was the first man in. Well, some more punches being exchanged there, but over top of the linesman. Greg Gilbert, I think, just received that stray fist from an Oiler player.
We're down to 2 minutes and 35 seconds remaining here. The Auditors about to tie this series up, and Gary, as they try and separate Gilbert, I believe, from Linsman. There's Brian Lewis, the referee, right in the middle of it.
Well, you couldn't get any better vantage point than Brian Lewis has got, but another fight has started in behind the two linesmen. This is something you don't want to see. The score is 6-1 for the Islanders right now. 2 minutes, 35 seconds remaining. If both teams were smart, they'd get out of it right now, save their strength for Game 3, because nothing is going to turn this score around right now tonight.
Yeah, I think when you've come this far, you're not going to scare anybody on the other team. I think they both had that same respect for each other.
Couldn't agree with you more. Maybe a little bit of frustration on the part of the Edmonton Oilers, but there shouldn't be. The series will be tied up 1-1, and they're going back to Edmonton.
Trying to figure out who was in that scrap. Was it Lumley? Lumley and Gord Deneen, the Islander rookie defenseman. He was involved in a little skirmish earlier.
Well, he's going to fight for his teammates. Gord Deneen, the first period intermission guest tonight, and Greg Gilbert. You don't keep a good man down, and the Islanders have got a lot of good men, and so, as John Tonelli so wisely said after game number 1, we have a lot of mature individuals in our dressing room, and we understand that it is only one game. We'll be there for game 2.
Let's go again to Al Trudwick.
Well, Dan, while we wait to find out whose gloves belong to who, we will tell everybody that the executive producer of USA Sports is Jim Drake. Tonight's game was produced by Mark D. Stolberger and directed by the Canadian Cowboy Ron Harrison. Our associate producers, Tim Rapley at the USA Broadcast Center, along with Kevin Landy, and USA Sports production coordinator, as always, Barbara Travers. Back to you.
We await the announcement of penalties. Deneen and another Islander player, Gilbert, have already gone to the dressing room. I wasn't watching who left for Edmonton, but we'll get the announcement momentarily. This game does not have nearly the impact on people like you or I or the fans as Game 1, which was a splendid game.
Pretty tough to repeat Game 1, wouldn't it be? Because Game 1 was probably one of the finest 60 minutes of hockey that we've seen in a long time. Tonight, with the disruption of a number of minor penalties in that first period, 15 to be exact, and I think that somehow just kind of sets both teams a little bit off balance, and the Islanders, you would have to say, dominated that first period of play, and jumping out to that 3-1 lead after one period of play, that in itself was quite a difference from game number 1.
And you see Lewis, with the help of his two linesmen, trying to sort out these penalties, which will be announced momentarily. We're down, as I say, to 2 minutes, 35 seconds remaining. And the Auditors have this one locked up with a 6-1 lead.
Al Arbor on your right. 7 Stanley Cups, 4 as a coach and 3 as a player. Sather on your left.
Dave Lumley gets a 5-minute major for fighting, plus a game misconduct. Ken Linsman of the Oilers, 2-minute minor, 5-minute major, plus a 10-minute misconduct. Gord Dineen of the Islanders, a 5-minute major, plus a game misconduct. Greg Gilbert. Gilbert gets a double minor for roughing. 5-minute major for fighting, plus a 10-minute misconduct. All this means is that the Islanders will be a man short here with 2:35 remaining. There's Bill Torrey, the Islander general manager. He's got a little bit of a grin on his face at this point tonight.
Well, he should have, knowing that his team has rebounded and come back to win. I guess we should never say they've won until it's over. As they say, it's never over until it's over. 2 minutes, 35 seconds remaining. Islanders with Greg Gilbert receiving that extra minor.
Just thinking as we looked at first Bill Torrey and then Al Arbor, what a management team they have turned out to be, and what an example for the rest of management hockey, the way they get along, the way they've been loyal to each other, and of course the way they have succeeded.
Very smart individuals. Bill Torrey has said many times he doesn't take a lot of credit for it. He just says, I just go out and get the players that Al Arbor tells me we've got to have, and I think that modesty is very evident within the whole Islander organization. Torrey and Arbor, a couple of real brain trusts.
Meanwhile, Arbor has been rewarded with a lifetime contract with this Islander organization. Here are the Oilers on a power play late in the game and trailing 6-1. Gretzky working it into the corner. Puck back of the net. Gretzky trying to get it free. Broken up by Brent Sutter and cleared away. And the Oilers have to go back. Number 11, Mark Messier. With 2 minutes left in this game. At center to Gretzky. Gretzky. Number 99. Moving it into Huddy. Shoots. Smith a stick save there. Into the corner. Coming up with it, Anderson. Trying to get it in front. Potvin there to intercept and clear it away. Pure heads the puck up ice to Huddy. Now to Coffey. Paul Coffey over to Glenn Anderson. Janssen there to knock it away from him. And that Islander defense all evening has been something to see. Got in, Smith there to knock
a couple of times tonight. The little things that he does. He runs that interference, as you saw him do twice there for Thomas Janssen, who had an Oiler player on his pursuit. Morrow just smart enough to step in between. Makes all the difference in the world.
There's a shot by Hughes that Smith turns aside. Now Gretzky. And behind the net, Smith tried to clear it away. Centered out in front by Hunter, but nobody there. Here's Pure out of the net to shoot it back to center. 35 seconds left. And Janssen breaks it up. Now Bossy, who was serving that penalty for Gilbert, out of the penalty box. The Islanders are back at full strength, and they're home free in this one. The Islanders about to tie this final series at 1 game apiece. There's Trottier flipping it in. Broken up in the Edmonton defense, and McClellan gives it to Pat Hughes. Flipping it near the Islander blue line, and Dennis Potvin back for New York. Potvin cleared it on the boards, and this game is over. And this series is tied at 1 game apiece. Clark Gillies with a hat trick, and Brian Trottier with a couple pace the Islanders to a 6-1 win. Shots on goal favor the Islanders 26-23. And the final score, the Islanders 6, Edmonton 1. The best of 7 Stanley Cup final tied at 1 game apiece.
For the Oilers here tonight, hat trick for Clark Gillies, power play 3 for 6, Islanders 6, Edmonton 1. The series is now tied at 1. That'll set the stage for Game 3. Will be at the Northlands Coliseum in Edmonton, Alberta. Games 3, 4, and 5 will be played there. Tuesday night starting time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 Pacific. Game 3 of the 1984 Stanley Cup Championship. Until then, please remember, be good to your mom tomorrow. I'm Al Troutwig for Dan Kelly and Gary Green. Good night from Uniondale. The Stanley Cup Championship, a presentation of USA Sports.